survey revealed the overall quality of life for military members has dropped from 91% happy to 56% over the past 5 years.
A recent survey by the Military Times, shocking indeed, a worsening morale crisis in the U.S. Armed Forces. The men and women who serve this nation and help to keep us safe no longer feel as if they have leaders who know what they're doing. And the evidence proves they just might be correct. He's a former member of the U.S. Navy SEALs, saw 2 deployments in Iraq amid dozens of combat missions, author of Battle on the Home Front, a Navy SEALs mission to save the American dream. It's a pleasure to welcome Carl Higbie back to MidPoint. Carl, thank you so much for joining us again.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again, Ed.
Carl, what is the exact reason why, in your opinion, why members of the American military simply feel as if they don't want to be there anymore?
Well, I can tell you, the faith in the mission is not lost. It's the fact that we have poor leadership, and that just not including the White House. Commander-in-Chief is obviously not a great leader, and he never served in the military, and he does, I believe, hate the military and what we stand for. But our senior leaders in the military, especially the Admiral General level, have all tried to appease those above them in political correctness. Myself, I was hung out for a prisoner abuse court-martial in 2009. We were all acquitted for it, but it destroyed our careers because you have these commanding generals who are now trying to appease the ones above us. And now you've seen the recent purge from the military from any officer that would potentially stand up to the president or his agenda. I think that the men are seeing this, and they don't have faith that their leaders will cover for them.
Carl, why do members of the military feel like the president hates them?
Look at the policies. He's announced pullout dates, which has cost lives. You look at the entire death rate, which happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. The death rate in Afghanistan was much higher under Obama after he would announce the plan. He would announce the procedure and announce the tactics we were doing. And the recent release of all the information for Zero Dark 30, the Bin Laden raid, I think that the military sees that he's not looking out for the best interest of the soldiers or even the mission. It's looking out for the best political fallout for his career.
All right, so let's just go by what you were saying here. The president obviously never was in the military, never served, so that's a problem right there. But now we're talking about the other leadership that you mentioned. We're talking about military career, military men and women who are in leadership positions right now, who've been on the battlefield, they've spent time there, and they're the ones that we're questioning. So why is it, it seems as if you don't necessarily need to have military experience in order to be a bad leader.
Well, it's true. I mean, the problem with the leadership now in the military is the people who are in the 3-4-star general range that are making these command decisions, battle space movements, and overall policy instruction for the military joined the military when there was no war, and they spent their entire time gaining rank and all their experiences based on peacetime. Now they're running a combat fight, and they don't understand the need for sometimes violent action, like what we've been doing with the interrogation, which I'm sure we'll get to. But it's there is a need to really fight this war and be as ruthless as your enemy. And a lot of our military leaders, especially the ones that are being kept around, don't understand that.
Then how do we teach that ruthlessness then? I mean, we used to have, didn't we used to have from West Point, from Annapolis and others, we would have these men and women who would be trained in the strategy, trained in going after the enemy. When did we lose that?
We lost it when political correctness infiltrated the military. Nowadays, if you go out on a combat mission, you have to, when you come back, you have to justify why you made combat decisions, why you made potentially lethal calls on the battlefield that saved your own lives and killed the enemy. You have to justify that in writing with shooters reports now every single time. It didn't used to be like that. Even my first deployment in 2007 to Iraq was not that scrutinized under Bush.
Is part of the problem, too, that maybe there's a lot of burnout going on here? Because let's face it, we're seeing folks like yourself and others who are doing 4, 5, 6 tours of duty over and over again. That's got to be a part of the problem. And again, it's an all-volunteer army, so we have to keep sending people back into the war theater.
Yeah, and you know, it wouldn't be that bad. When I was deployed to Baghdad in 2007, I really enjoyed the deployment. We got to do a lot of work. We were out there doing what we were trained to do as soldiers. Now, in 2009, under the President Obama, it was a completely different deployment where our hands were tied and rules of engagement we couldn't keep. They tried to tell us that we couldn't keep our guns loaded when we left the wire, which is the base. And we thoroughly disagreed with that. And the problem is, anytime you call them on it, much like General Mattis, who was a favorite among the Marine Corps as the commandant, he was pushed out of his position because he stood up and said, hey, we need to fight this war on our terms, not the enemy's terms.
I got about 30 seconds left, and then we'll take a break. In your experience, do soldiers look at each other, either on or off the battlefield, and say, boy, I'll tell you, the generals and the president, stunningly clueless people?
Yes. I think overwhelmingly they do. And the problem is the people who are in the ranks that are actually doing the job, just won't speak out or can't speak out because they're afraid of losing their career. And we have families. I wrote my book on active duty and I was crucified for it. We just need to, we need a bunch of people to stand up and say, enough is enough. Time to fight this war on our terms.
All right, now hang on to that for a couple of minutes here. Carl Higbie returns after the break. We'll dig into his opinions on the just-released CIA torture report. And later on, when Republican and Democrat actually work together and we're able to agree on things. It's coming up on MidPoint.